Welcome to a special edition of the Long Blue Leadership Podcast presented by the U.S. Air Force Academy Association and Foundation. Your co-host for this edition of Long Blue Leadership are Lieutenant Colonel retired Navir Walkowitz, USAFA class of 99, and the Association and Foundation's Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Mr. Wyatt Hornsby. And now, Navir Walkowitz and Wyatt Hornsby.
Welcome to our retrospective for Season 3. We're celebrating the first 3 seasons of the Association and Foundation's premier podcast and the countless leadership lessons shared by some of the most accomplished Air Force Academy grads.
Navir, in Season 3, we've showcased some amazing stories and takeaways that apply to life both in and out of the military. From the start, Long Blue Leadership has given listeners an inside look at real experiences, insights, and advice from seasoned leaders, as well as those just beginning their journeys. These deep dives explore how leaders not only face challenges head-on, but also find ways to inspire and empower those around them.
These conversations are amazing. What really sets this podcast apart are how these leadership discussions consistently touch on teamwork, perseverance, humility, excellence, and service before self.
Well said, Navir. And in this edition of Long Blue Leadership, we're going to respond to a few clips and share our own perspectives related to some of our favorite moments, and we'll also preview what's coming up in Season 4.
Now, Wyatt and I would be remiss if we didn't share. Listen, we could go on about every guest that's on this podcast because everyone is remarkable, but we're just going to focus on a few of them. So let's jump right into some of our favorite moments from Season 3.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, this first clip is someone that you're going to recognize, Dr. Heather Wilson, class of 82. What an amazing graduate. And, when we think about what she's accomplished, she's a distinguished graduate, Secretary of the Air Force, going on into Congress. She is a mentor for many. And this particular clip, she actually is referring to someone that's been a mentor for her and being able to make an impact in his life. So let's take a listen.
My grandfather was an aviator. He was also a mechanic. He could use any tool. It was just amazing with his hands. And I had learned a new tool in school. And I took out a piece of graph paper and I drew a curve. And I said, Grandpa, do you think you could find the area under this curve? And he said, well, I'd probably count up the squares and estimate from there on the graph paper. And then I showed him something new. And it was called calculus. And it was the first time in my life that I realized I had a tool that my grandfather didn't have. He had a high school education and had gone into the RAF during the First World War. And he was a great mechanic and a really good man. But I realized that there were opportunities for me that maybe my grandfather never had.
What an amazing conversation with her. What did you think about that comment about the tool?
It's very, very, very moving. You can see just what her grandfather, what he meant to her, and just to think about those experiences and how they informed and influenced how Dr. Wilson has been a leader to so many in Congress as Secretary of the Air Force, and now as President of the University of Texas, El Paso.
Yes. And when you go back to that conversation, I think she talks about tools in a toolbox, and she relates it to her grandfather and her dad, I think, as well. But she talks about the toolbox almost serving as you never know when you're going to need a tool. So as long as you collect tools over time, they can make a difference. And so she likens them to the people in your life and the people that serve with you and under you and above you. But if you start to recognize the tools that they have, you never know when they're going to make a difference. And in her case, she was actually able to provide a tool like calculus for her grandfather.
A great lesson.
Yes. So make sure you take a listen on that one.
Well, Navir, this next conversation I absolutely love. Chad Hennings, class of 1988, who went on, I believe, to serve in the Gulf War, flew the A-10 before joining the Super Bowl winning Dallas Cowboys. And I love this conversation. Chad talks in this conversation about who you are isn't necessarily what you do. It comes from who you are from within. And I just love this clip. Let's listen to her.
One of the questions that I ask someone that is changing and transitioning in their careers, whether that be from professional athletics or from the military, I ask them, who are you? A lot of times they'll say, I'm Captain so-and-so, or I'm a former F-16 fighter pilot, or I'm a former running back, whatever. I go, no, that's what you do. Who are you? What you do does not define who you are. I mean, and that's the thing that I think so many people need to grasp, is that their identity is not based on what they do. It's more of an inner pursuit.
Well, I won't put you on the spotlight and ask you, who you are. But I remember that conversation, and it was really quite a reflective one for me, because I remember as he was sharing those things, I started thinking, well, who am I, as a leader, etc. So that was really meaningful.
Indeed. I mean, all across our lives and careers, we do a lot of different things. We wear a lot of different hats at various points. And I think it's hard, but I think it's so meaningful to really reflect on your own personal values in determining really who you are from within. I just loved how Chad talked about that.
Yes, that was just one of the lessons that he shared. And I think it really kind of goes back to understanding yourself and growing as a leader. So it's certainly a wonderful conversation for those interested there.
For sure.
Well, let's take a visit to one of our younger graduates, most recently, 2024 class, and his name is Wyatt Hendrickson. So another Wyatt here. Some might remember him as Captain America. I think he's been called that lately in the news, but known for just his accomplishments in the world of wrestling and what he's continuing to go on, hopefully here in the Olympics. But this conversation really is about some real insightful moments that I think he's had as a young leader, that he recognizes the importance of doing things for yourself. And some might first think, well, that sounds kind of selfish, right? We're taught to be team members and team players and do things together. But when we listen to this clip, I think we understand why he talks about doing things for yourself. Let's take a listen.
As a leader at the Air Force Academy, I started going to those briefs, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to try to have a bad mindset. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to show up here just to check a box. I'm going to show up here and try to take something from it. So what I did, I bring like a notebook or a small little pamphlet just to write notes. And everything you do it with intent. Don't do it because you're afraid of a bad result. You're afraid of something here or there. Do it because you want to do it, and you have to decide you're doing it for yourself.
What I really like about that clip is, understanding that you have to do things for yourself and not others. And so I liken it, we are parents, and at one time we were children. And so we probably we do things as parents for your children. When you're a child, you do things because you don't want to make your parents unhappy, or you want to make your teacher proud or your coach proud. And I think, he's learned early as a leader that if you're going to do something with intent, to do it for yourself. What do you think?
That's right. Being able to invest in yourself so that you can show up for others as well. And so I think when you really consider that, he's really talking about a little bit of service before self within that as well. And I think it's working out well for him. He just pulled off, some say, the biggest upset in NCAA wrestling history. And I agree. We'll hope that he gets to the Olympics. Just what a remarkable young leader and athlete.
Yes, and what an exciting and engaging conversation that I hope you'll take a listen to as well. There were some exciting moments in there that he experienced, I think, with the president, and, just kind of reflective moments with his coach, but certainly a conversation that many will be engaged by.
And when we talked to him, his life was very busy, and we just so appreciate him taking time to talk with you, Navir.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Navir, this next guest I absolutely love. Jemal Singleton, class of 1999.
Global shine.
That's right. Assistant head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. Also coach for running backs for the Eagles. And this was such a great conversation. You were able to go to Philadelphia and sit down with Jemal and really hear his story. And the conversation was just full of great insights. But one thing that Jemal said that I absolutely loved was, no matter where you are in your life and career, lead where you are. You don't have to have a big team or direct reports. Just lead where you are. So let's listen to that clip.
All right.
I think the biggest thing that you can do is lead where you're at. And it doesn't matter where you're at. There's none of, oh, well, I'm not the CEO, or, oh, I'm not the head coach, or, oh, I'm not the commander. So the leadership comes in a million different ways. And I truly believe that, kind of what you do with the little things is how you do everything. And if in your position, whatever it may be, maybe nobody even works for you, you can still lead from that position. You can lead from that spot. And I think that's it. Don't be afraid to step out. Don't be afraid to be a leader in your own mind, it's got to start there. At some point, you keep honing those skills and then maybe you are going to grow. And then, hey, now you have 3 people working for you, but you then now be a leader at that point. And it's kind of like what I mentioned earlier about be where your feet are. Well, lead where your feet are at.
What a great insight. And I think that is just so helpful for not only people who are earlier in their career, and maybe they want to be able to grow as a leader, but also for leaders as well in terms of how they instill in their people, in the people who they're privileged to lead, how they can continue to grow and advance.
Yes, what a great life lesson in general. I think sometimes we are so eyes forward on the next thing that we forget to be our best at the present in the moment. And that was a really, I think, a key message that I took from that was, when he says lead where you are, be fully present where you are, just like we are right now, reliving kind of that moment with him. And so, what an engaging and amazing conversation with Coach Jemal Singleton. Of course, being a 99 grad, you'd expect that, but.
And we wish him all the best. What a run he's on right now.
Yes.
Congrats to the Eagles.
Yes, and if I may just offer this, I did want to extend to the team with the Eagles. I mean, what a world-class operation out there to be able to invite us in and put us in their amazing studio to help us share the story that really goes beyond the football, right? It goes beyond the field and how they're doing things as leaders out there. So thank you so much for that amazing support. We really appreciate it. All right. This next clip, Wyatt, is someone that we know well. She is one of our past AOG board directors, class of 2010, Emma Przybyslawski, also a Young Alumni Excellence Award winner for us. What a remarkable leader. She served in the Air Force in the special operations community, but also went on after the uniform to really kind of lead her team and her business. In this particular clip, she's talking about leadership outside of uniform. And I think it's important for our listeners to know that leadership comes in and outside of uniform. And so we want to make sure we highlight that. But this particular clip, she talks about getting to know as fast as you can. And that's an odd statement to hear, but I think it's really impactful.
One of my key tenets is having the stomach to say like, oof, this didn't work out the way that I wanted it to, or maybe we were wrong about that. Step 1, right? Admitting the problem. Step 2 is then pivot, move on, let it go. Just let it go. And either take some great lessons learned from it, hopefully you do, or just bail on it and like go on to something different. Get to know as fast as you can. Like, no is an okay answer. But man, let's get there as fast as we can, because the more time you iterate and waste on like bad ideas that you don't know if they're bad yet, but they're going to be, the sooner you can get to know, the better off you are.
I really like that just because it's so different. I mean, it's a different perspective on, being thoughtful on, resources and time and how you actually utilize all that as a leader and when you're making decisions that impact others. I just thought that was really insightful. What did you get from it?
I agree. And what I hear from that is integrity and discipline. No one likes to admit that they're wrong. It's not the most fun thing in the world. But what I heard Emma say was, if we got something wrong, just admit it, get there as quickly as possible, learn, and move on. So I love that leadership insight.
Yes. And when you look through history and you think about, those greats, those innovators, but, over time they've failed because they failed to actually move forward or stop something that was no longer working. They just held on so tight. I think as a leader, it's important to recognize that. And her as, such, I think, a young and enthusiastic and, impactful leader, realizing that it's an important lesson I think we can all take.
It's easy to see, when we hear Emma talk about leadership, it's easy to see how far she's come in life and what she's been able to do.
Yes. So make sure you listen to that. While she does talk about that outside of uniform, she does share some incredible stories while she was in the special operations community. I think our listeners will really enjoy learning some of that too.
Indeed. All right, Naveer, our next guest, Dr. John Torres, class of 1982, and that's a name that many of our listeners and viewers may be familiar with, chief medical correspondent for NBC News. And I love this conversation. Dr. Torres was able to take time from his schedule and visit with us here in Wecker Hall. And really what he talked about, what I took away from this, was that leaders earn respect and loyalty. They take care of their people, and they put their people really before themselves. So let's listen to this clip.
Watching leaders and how they did things, both when I was here at the academy and when I was in the Air Force, and even through medical school, the doctors that were good and talked to people appropriately, the leaders that were good, and they had the men and women following them because they wanted to follow them versus following them because they had to follow them. And as you know, there's a huge difference there. And I try to model myself after the ones who had people that followed them because they wanted to follow them. They respected them. They earned that respect. They earned that loyalty. And to me, that was always an important thing. And so when I transitioned over to medicine, especially being a flight doc, I wanted them to do the things that medically were important for them because they wanted to, because they trusted me and they understood that I was looking out for them and not just their career or not just their flying, but looking out for them and their families.
I remember that conversation. Yes.
Caring deeply about the person and not necessarily putting that before what they do.
Exactly. That conversation went on because it was referencing the fact that as a medical doctor in the service, you had those that really wanted to fly, like that was their calling. And when they had a medical issue arise, Dr. Torres, because he led in the way that he did, he created that relationship and that trust to be able to say, this is what we're up against. And, to be able to make a leadership and a professional recommendation. And then that, I care about you as a person. So I'm going to ask you to consider this, even if it might be the hard decision that they'd have to make. And I think that goes a long way for leaders because sometimes we have to give bad news to our people.
That's right. And really caring about those who were charged with leading, and taking care of their best interests, sometimes having those tough conversations. But when we do that, when we authentically care about our people, they will respect us, they will trust, and that's really what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Powerful.
I think we could probably both think about examples of leaders in our lives that maybe we didn't get the best news, but we always knew they had our best interests and we would walk through fire for them.
That's right.
Yes. What a great conversation with an amazing speaker. You'll have to take a listen to the entire conversation with Dr. Torres because his was really incredible. And the fact that he actually almost left the academy, but stayed because of survival training. So you make sure you listen to that. All right. Well, this last clip we're going to visit is, I still just got goosebumps thinking about the conversation with him. It's a recent conversation with Major General Tom P. Sherman, class of 1995, the current vice superintendent of the Air Force Academy. And I could go on and on about, the way he inspires through his words. But this particular clip, Wyatt, was one where he talks about courage, right? And when he recognized a moment in time, this is from a conversation with his AOC back when he was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, and he had a moment of clarity.
We've both had the opportunity to see General Sherman speak, and just an incredible speaker and presenter, really gets to know his audience. So let's listen.
All right.
But I think really where the foundation came in is where we started to talk about leadership. And what I was asking him to do was to pull my rated recommendation form. So we had just submitted them, and I was asking him to pull my rated recommendation form. I didn't want to compete for it anymore. And so we started to talk about leadership, and he says, hey, Cadet Sherman, you need to understand that, leadership in this Air Force is being the lead F-16 pilot on a bombing run, putting iron on target. And that's true. It's a very important part of leadership. It is a very important part of tactical operational leadership in this Air Force. So he's not wrong in that space. But I was looking at it from a different lens, and I was looking at it, I think, on a larger level. And what I don't think he realized is that 30 seconds before I walked into his office, he set me up for success. I just happened to be waiting outside the office, and all of a sudden I looked on his corkboard, and somebody, and I don't know who it was, had pinned a note that was written to Airman Magazine by an Airman First Class. And this Airman First Class titled this, "I Need a Leader." And this A1C felt so strongly about what they were feeling, and I have no idea who this person was, felt so strongly about it that they put pen to paper, and this would have been the fall of 1994, and sent this into Airman Magazine. And it says, "I need a leader. Commissioning sources. Send us lieutenants that we can look up to, that will hold us accountable when we do wrong, that will encourage us when we do well, that will be an example that we can look up to, that will care about us as human beings, because you are not sending them to us now. Air Force, I need a leader." Like that 30 seconds just before I walked into his office, that changed my life. And it changed my life because for me at that moment, what I was getting ready to go ask my AOC to do, what I was looking at inside myself, like that became my charge.
Navira, I mean, as a graduate, how does that land with you? I mean, what's
I have
your
chill bumps right now, and it's not because it's cold in here, because it's not. I think you nailed it when you said he's someone that can really kind of inspire through his words. But, when I hear him say that, it makes me want to go back through the academy all over again. I want to do it again to see if I can do it better, because I want to be a leader for that airman and for anyone else that is serving alongside me, under me, etc. That's what I felt hearing that again.
Yeah, and just from the whole conversation, I mean, that's really, I think that's the essence of General Sherman's career, in my eyes, is that he has done everything he can to deliver or to develop as a leader and to be able to bring out the best in everyone who he has had the opportunity to lead and work with.
One of my favorite moments in that conversation was about, what do you want your legacy to be? I think that was maybe a way that I asked the question. And his answer was so unique because he said, I don't really think about legacy like down the road. He says, it's almost like he thinks about it in real time. And I'm paraphrasing, so you'll have to listen to the conversation. But he talked about like his legacy is when he makes an impact in every moment. So like this, you and I together, if I'm able to make an impact through our conversation, like that's his legacy. And off the screen, I didn't get to share this in our conversation, but my son Arden's he's a cadet now. And when I told him I was going to be doing this podcast with General Sherman, he had nothing but amazing. Mom, I would walk through fire for him. He's so amazing. He's so inspiring. And I shared that with General Sherman. I said, well, you should know, sir, that you created a legacy with my son. And it actually brought some emotion to him. And that's who he is. I think that's who we want to be.
Absolutely. A remarkable leader, and just an amazing episode, and hope that you all take the time to listen to it.
Yes. So those were our highlights from season 3. And like I said, we could go on about every one of our guests because they're so impactful and amazing, and just we take something from each of them.
We did, Navir. And I want to just take a moment too, just to thank you for doing such a great job in season 3, and just not asking questions, but just having conversations. And it's just easy to see that this just is kind of like a conversation over coffee, where you're just talking about leadership and really getting a sense of what their journey has been, whether it's been the good or the not so good, but just really finding out who they are authentically. So thank you, Navir, just for leading those conversations.
It's my great pleasure. I think some of the best work behind the scenes comes from this place of wanting to help share their story in a way that our listeners may not have ever heard before, and almost unlocking within them something that surprises themselves about themselves. You know what I mean? Where they're actually like, wow, I'm sharing this, and it's almost unlocking this new portal on leadership on themselves. And so that's kind of how I always approach preparation for a conversation. And my goal is just to leave someone with something that really resonates with them.
Well done, Navir. And while we're at it, we're going to put Ted, our producer, our amazing producer, on the spot here. And Ted, congratulations again on a great season 3. And what are just any reflections that you want to share, Ted?
I'm loving watching Navir grow and glow as a host. She's just my favorite person ever to work with. And
Thanks for that, Ted.
Thank all of you. This doesn't happen without a whole team committing time and resources and effort, eyes, ears, ideas. It doesn't happen without this group effort. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And speaking of places to be, you're going to talk about this a little later. Some listener feedback coming up next that Wyatt's going to tell you about. But we have the gift of a new studio that some of you are seeing for the first time inside of our new building that we can't wait for many of you to see. So thank you both for everything you do, your support, your encouragement, and giving me this couple of minutes to share my thoughts with all of you.
Thanks, Ted.
Yeah, thank you, Ted. Again, great work. And we're just, we're very grateful for all the heart and soul you put into Long Blue Leadership.
Well, up next, Wyatt has some listener feedback to share with you. But before we do that, I'd like to take a moment and thank you for listening to Long Blue Leadership. This podcast publishes the first and third Tuesdays of the month in both audio and video and is available on all your favorite podcast apps. Be sure to watch or listen to all episodes of Long Blue Leadership at longblueleadership.org. Once more, that's longblueleadership.org.
And a note I saw from Allison D. in reference to Naveer's conversation, particularly with Emma Przybyslawski. And this highlights how hard Naveer has worked and how well she has done as host of Long Blue Leadership. And I'll start with Allison's note to Naveer, and then I'd like to add some thoughts of my own. From Allison, just wanted to do a quick shout out to let you know that I've been listening to your interview with Emma P., and I thought you did a phenomenal job. Emma's willingness to share her perspective and experiences in such an authentic way was a testament to her, but I also wanted you to know that while I was actively listening to her responses, I was also blown away by your ability to follow up with each response with an insightful and natural follow-up question. My brain was still digesting her last response, and I don't know how you were able to digest and formulate such an interesting follow-up question in such a short amount of time. Well done, Naveer.
I remember that comment. What a special moment to get that from Allison. Thanks for sharing that, Wyatt.
Our pleasure, and thank you again, Naveer, for doing such a great job as our host.
Well, Wyatt, let's talk about season 4. It's coming
Can't
up.
wait.
Yes. Some new things. Do you want to talk about kind of where we're in right now? What to expect?
We're going to be having 13 episodes. 10 are going to be Long Blue Leadership, and then 2 are going to be really developmental focus, special presentations. Can't wait for that. And then, of course, we'll wrap up season 4 with a retrospective, Naveer.
Oh gosh, it's going to be amazing. I think what we've learned from the past seasons are people really enjoy hearing the stories from graduates that they can connect with, some transformational moments in their lives. But really excited. We kicked it off here at the end of season 3. We'll be coming from our new studio here in Wecker Hall. So they'll get to see the studio and really hear the stories from our graduates. Those are really influential and key leaders in their fields.
I can't wait. And some of our guests, they'll include academics, war fighters, general officers, business leaders, scholars, diplomats, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and others.
Yes, and you mentioned it, that kind of leadership, those 2 special episodes on leadership, this focus on leadership, we're actually going to go to experts in a field. Maybe they're published authors, but they are going to be some real experts that help our graduates and our listeners hone in on their leadership development. So it's really going to give them some tactical and tangible things that they can do to improve on their own leadership.
I can't wait, Naveer. An exciting new feature of Long Blue Leadership as we just continue to elevate our game. It's going to be really great.
It's going to be great. It's going to that focus on leadership will kick off in October with our second one in December. Wyatt and I want to thank you for joining us today. We can't wait to share the 4th season of Long Blue Leadership with you starting this September. You can expect more compelling stories from outstanding Air Force Academy graduates. We like to keep the podcast conversations thoughtful and aimed at telling our guests stories as we explore their personal leadership journeys, their philosophies, and their styles. Season 4 promises to engage, inspire, and empower whether you're an aspiring, emerging, or seasoned leader. Visit longblueleadership.org for more episodes and past seasons, or nominate a guest, or send us your feedback at social media at usafa.org. Long Blue Leadership is available on all your favorite podcast apps.
And Naveer, this was such a great conversation, and I want to encourage you, if you've listened to these episodes or you've watched and you were particularly inspired, please share across your social media channels, share with your friends and colleagues and family members, because we really want these conversations to be for anyone who's interested in developing as a leader, regardless of what career pursuit they've taken.
We like to say like, subscribe, and share.
There you go.
Well, I'm Naveer Walkowitz.
And I'm Wyatt Hornsby.
Until next time.